Probably growing up, I'd look into my cupboard and think, like, there's nothing to eat. My mom would come in and whip up the most amazing feast. And I feel that's what we did.
Welcome back to Searchlight Report, a podcast from South Dakota Searchlight. I'm Meghan O'Brien, and our podcast brings you up to date on policy and politics in the Mount Rushmore state. On this week's episode, we're taking a look into the last week of the South Dakota legislative session, from final budget setting to a hands-on legislative day at a test driving course. But first, we'll take a look at the words of some state lawmakers who won't or might not be returning next year. You just heard from Red Dawn Foster, a Democrat from the Pine Ridge Reservation, home of the Oglala Sioux tribe. She's served 8 years in the state Senate. In her farewell speech to the body, she mentioned the 1.4% increase the legislature budgeted for schools, state employees, and Medicaid providers after the governor initially recommended flat funding.
I'll start by saying Leila Wopila Tonka. And I definitely have a very happy heart right now. We started this session off with 0% growth. And coming together, looking in that cupboard, where can we pull from? How can we be innovative? What can we do? 1.4 may not be a feast, but I think that just the innovation that we've brought to say what our priorities are is a feast. You know, I just want to say, everybody, thank you for letting me serve among you and including me in the conversations and the legislation that we bring. And I just have the utmost respect for this body. And so, Leila Wopila Tonka.
Legislators reached their term limits after 8 consecutive years in either chamber. Some, like Senator Steve Colbeck, a Brandon Republican, are choosing not to run for re-election.
Well, you all know I'm a crier, and Red Dawn gets up and gives this great speech, so I'll see how long I can make it. But, you know, I didn't ever go to, I flunked out of college. You guys all kind of know that. It worked out okay, but I've never been a part of a frat. But I consider all of you, my number 2 son went to USD, and he's part of a frat, and they're tight. And I consider you all my...
Colbeck sat down, emotional from the day's speeches. He added a thanks later to Lieutenant Governor Tony Van Huysen, who presided over the Senate this year. A member of the House of Representatives whose term limited is Aaron Healy, a Democrat from Sioux Falls.
When I walked into this building 8 years ago, I didn't think of everything that could potentially happen in my life, but I've become a legislator, and since then I've grown, I've taken on new responsibilities. I've faced a lot of challenges, as we all do. I experienced some of my most meaningful moments. I became a wife, I became a stepmom, I became a mom, and a lot of you guys got to witness that with me. This work isn't easy. We all know that. We debate passionately, we disagree. We sometimes leave this chamber so incredibly frustrated and tired and angry. And at the end of the day, the chamber only works if we remember something really simple but also really powerful. And that's that these seats aren't ours. These seats belong to the people of South Dakota. We are just fortunate enough to sit in them for just a little bit of time.
This week brought the last days of the 2026 legislative session, except for a final day later this month when lawmakers have the opportunity to reconsider bills that the governor has vetoed. The legislature's last act was passing a budget. Lawmakers included an increase for the state's so-called Big Three: education, state employees, and Medicaid providers. Republican Governor Larry Roden proposed flat funding for those groups in December, but in February, the state learned it had enough money from higher sales tax revenue to give those priorities a boost. Those groups will see 1.4% funding increases, over $34 million more than the flat funding the governor proposed. Representative Mike Derby, a Rapid City Republican, serves as co-chair of the state's Joint Budget Setting Committee.
Well, we did it. We landed the budget plane on day 36, but we were right on target. Some of the key priorities within the budget: a 1.4% increase for K-12 and technical colleges, We must continue to prioritize teachers in the state, making sure that teachers are not left behind. 1.4% increase for community-based providers, nursing homes, assisted living, hospitals, and all of the providers that take care of those in need. 1.4% increase for our state employees' workforce, which maintains competitiveness of wages for state employees to help with heightened inflation.
The state's total budget is $7.5 billion, up 2.4% from last year. Some lawmakers who voted against the budget say the state should be giving more to education. Senator Taffy Howard is a Republican from Rapid City.
We had the opportunity this year to, maybe meet statutory obligations. I'm extremely frustrated that we continue year after year to ignore our lawful obligation to increase state aid to education by 3% or CPI, whichever is less. And we just ignore that every year. And instead, we increase welfare program spending, and we add all these other additional programs that are new spending programs that we didn't have before. So I just get really frustrated that we aren't even taking care of what we are already lawfully obligated to do, and yet we go out and just keep spending on other things. So
this year, an inflationary increase would have been 2.5%, which would have cost the state an additional $11.7 million. But lawmakers can get around the requirement by resetting the prior year's baseline each year when they draft a new spending measure. I'll be back with more news after this break.
Hi, it's Moses Eshet, Product Associate at States Newsroom. At States Newsroom, we have more than 200 reporters and editors working for you. Our journalists are located in all 50 state capitals and Washington, D.C., providing state-focused news coverage about the issues that matter most to you and your community. You can support our work by going to statesnewsroom.com/subscribe.
Lawmakers got a chance to have some fun during their final week, thanks to an invitation from the Department of Public Safety. The department let lawmakers drive the Emergency Vehicle Operation course earlier this week in Pierre, and I rode along with Lieutenant Dave Campbell, Secretary of Department Public Safety Bob Perry, and Representative Tim Walberg, a Madison Republican. Campbell goes to Washington State to earn a certification to teach the course, also known as EVOC. He took the first turn behind the wheel.
Do you know anything about the EVOC program?
I know what it stands for, and that is it.
So yeah, anybody that's a city cop, sheriff, game fish and parks, highway patrolman, DCI, they all have to come through some sort of driving training, which we call our emergency vehicle operations course. So they have to come through here. For most of them, it's a week long, so they will stay here the entire weekend. They have a classroom section and then a testing session where they have to perform every exercise, and then we tie it into a final grand finale. So, and we do a mock pursuit. So we kind of cover a bunch of things. We teach them how to throw spike strips. For the highway patrol, we teach them how to pit cars, which is spinning a car out and disabling it. So it's a pretty challenging course for some of them. They really struggle, and some just breeze right through it. So the patrol cars here are old, turned-in highway patrol vehicles. So the highway patrol kind of provides the cars and the equipment, and LET helps pay for bills as far as repairs or those type of things. So that's kind of how the vehicle fleet evolves. You can see some of them have metal bumpers, so those would be the ones that we use for training for the pit maneuvers, because we don't want to be damaging cars, or
Right.
even though we still damage them, it's less of a damage.
Some kind of protection for
yep.
them.
So that's kind of how the fleet is acquired and put together through the highway patrol.
Do you guys usually have a lot of legislators come out for a day like this?
So this year probably is as many as we've had. We've only done it a handful of times that I'm aware of, so since I've been part of it. So they always enjoy it. We got a new surface because of them 3 years ago or so, and so it was nice to bring them out and let them see the new oil and the new track. A lot of them hadn't seen what their blessing went towards, so it was really good for them to see it. And then they come out and they see it, they have fun, and they're like, "What else do you guys need? Like, what's a future need that you guys might have?" Or so those are always interesting conversations where we need power and running water. It'd be nice.
Representative Walberg is a retired Lake County sheriff. He took the wheel next with Campbell as a kind of backseat driver.
Turn him loose. All right, 33 is the goal. If you're not feeling it, do what you feel like. Don't do grandmas. And no brakes once we're in it. We're committed now. Out the throttle. Whoops. You hear your foot just resting on that throttle.
You want me to go back and pick up the code?
Probably should. That was no big shot.
The last time I did this course was early, mid-2000s.
Oh man, so it's been a while.
It's been a hot minute. It's changed a little bit.
Not what you were used to doing?
You know, we backed up a slalom when we were wherever we were at doing this. We had to back up the whole thing. After we did the forward, we had to go backwards and then gun it to go forward all over again. And take the corner going hot. And then we had to come up to an area where, like he was saying, it's 50 miles an hour, whatever it was. And then the instructor would say right or left. Yeah.
After Wahlberg's round, Secretary Bob Perry asked me,
Morgan, right? You want to drive?
Megan?
Megan.
Yes.
Sorry,
No.
and I was in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I'll switch. Oh, geez.
Hitting speeds of about 50 miles an hour.
Perfect.
Gotta go.
And also hitting a likely record-breaking number of traffic cones, also known as bases, Campbell told me.
So I always tell people just start slow, and if it feels too slow, then speed up. Then they ask about the bases. Does the base count? Well, do grandma's toes at a parade count? You know, kind of. So we encourage them to stay off the bases as much as we can. So here's your pivot cone coming up on my door right here. So we're gonna move it over one lane.
Oh, pull forward.
A little bit early.
Caught that one a little early.
How many grandma's toes do we have left today?
Well, that was grandma.
Gravel roads. Tight curves. And narrowly set traffic cones.
Yep. 53, just coasting in here, eyes on the horizon.
Act as ways for training law enforcement officers in emergency driving. About a dozen lawmakers came out to the course to test their skills behind the wheel. Republican Governor Larry Roden signed 2 bills into law this week that are part of a plan for homeowner property tax reduction, the topic that dominated the legislative session. The relief will come from higher sales taxes.
Senate Bill 96 is the local option half-cent sales tax, so that will be delivered at the county level. If they choose to adopt that plan, those dollars will be collected and put into the property tax relief fund and refunded to proportionately to the owner-occupied taxpayers in that county specifically, using the half cent collected within that county.
This part of the plan was proposed by Roden. It will give counties their first opportunity to impose sales taxes up to 0.5%. They currently rely on property taxes. If counties choose to levy a sales tax, they'll have to use the revenue for homeowner property tax credits. Roden's office estimates an average reduction of $660 per homeowner if they live in a county that decides to enact a county tax to the full 0.5% rate. The second part of the plan is Senate Bill 245. That will reduce the property taxes levied by school districts. The state will use about $56 million from its reserves to start up the effort by injecting that money into the education funding formula. In following years, it will continue the relief by capturing revenue from a statewide sales tax rate increase. That will happen next year when the temporary 4.2 sales tax rate goes back to 4.5%. Lawmakers temporarily reduced the sales tax rate 3 years ago and scheduled it to increase next year. The plan to capture the revenue for property tax relief came from the Speaker of the House, John Hanson, a Republican from Del Rapids. He's one of the candidates running against Roden this year for the Republican nomination for governor.
You know, there's some concern about using the 4.2 to 4.5% sales tax revenue that's coming in and putting that to property tax relief, there just wasn't enough support to make that 4.2% cut permanent. And so when I look at, okay, what's the next best option? I think dedicating that revenue that was representative of savings to taxpayers, a cut to taxpayers, and putting it right back in their pockets for property tax relief, I think it's the next best thing that we could do. And so I'm really glad that the legislature, along with the governor, made the decision to do just that.
Rodin's office has estimated that the money from the statewide sales tax increase will reduce homeowner property taxes 14 to 22%, equating to a savings of $548 on a home valued at $325,000. Lieutenant Governor Tony Van Huysen says this is the largest property tax cut in state history.
So Governor Janklow proposed a property tax cut of $120 million in 1995. In the end, they were only able to do, I think, 2/3 of it in the first year, or maybe 80% in the first year. And then in the following 2 years, they did another 10% and 10%. So it was probably about $100 million.
In today's dollars, Janklow's plan would be worth more than $250 million in property tax relief. This year's plan is worth $114 million from the statewide sales tax increase and an untold extra amount from optional county sales taxes. I'll be back with more news after this break.
South Dakota journalism is changing. Traditional, corporate-owned media outlets have reduced their staffs. Newspapers have lost pages and publication days. That's why South Dakota Searchlight shares its work with other outlets for free. We hope local outlets republish our statewide news and commentary, and we hope that frees them up to focus on their community. That means you might see our work at SouthDakotaSearchlight.com, in your local paper, on the website of your local TV station, or even on the airwaves of your local radio station. All of that is possible with your support to our nonprofit mission. You can help at SouthDakotaSearchlight.com/donate.
Finally, this year marks the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. South Dakota has already started its celebration.
My name is Ben Jones. I'm the chair of the South Dakota Commission for the America 250 work here in the state. How or why do we have a Liberty Bell? That's a very good question. And the history of this bell is that in 1950, so 5 years after the end of the Second World War, the United States Treasury was trying to sell bonds in order to recover the costs and finance the costs of the war. And so they started a national bond drive, and each state got a Liberty Bell. This bell went around to over 100 communities in South Dakota in the summer of 1950, selling bonds for the United States Treasury. And in that bond drive, the goal was $6.2 million, and South Dakotans bought $6.2 million worth of bonds in that bond drive and made the goal. That bond drive occurred throughout the nation as well, and during the bond drive then, in June of 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, and the United States was back in a war. So that fueled a lot of the effort with patriotism and sense of what the nation meant to the citizens of South Dakota. So that's why this bell is here. And as the plaque says, it was put here in 1950, and it was installed here in October of 1950. We think it was rung when it was installed, and we don't think it's been rung since.
Governor Larry Rodin struck the bell to help ring in the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. That's all we have for this week on Searchlight Report. The podcast is based on reporting by South Dakota Searchlight staff editor Seth Tupper, senior reporter John Holt, and reporters Joshua Heyer, Mackenzie Huber, and me. I write the scripts and produce the audio with editing by Seth Tupper. Audio this week came from recordings by South Dakota Searchlight and legislative live streams provided by South Dakota Public Broadcasting. South Dakota Searchlight is part of States Newsroom, the nation's largest nonprofit news organization. Until next time, I'm South Dakota Searchlight's Meghan O'Brien with the Searchlight Report.